Her name is Francisca Castillo. Everyone in her village calls her Panchita. She is 102 years old and she is standing in a field. Not sitting, not resting, standing in a field. At 102. Every morning before the Costa Rican sun gets too strong, Panchita walks out to the small plot of land beside her home in the Nicoya Peninsula and checks on her garden. She tends beans, she checks the corn, she moves the way people move when they have been moving like this for a century, slowly, steadily, without any particular urgency. Her blood pressure at her last check was 120/78. Her physician described her cognitive function as sharp. She does not take a daily medication. She does not own a gym membership. And she has eaten roughly the same 3 foods, the same 3 cheap, ordinary foods, at nearly every meal for her entire life. Here is what makes this medically remarkable. Men on the Nicoya Peninsula reach the age of 90 at twice the rate of men elsewhere in Costa Rica. The Nicoya Peninsula is the only blue zone in the Western Hemisphere. Researchers who study longevity have been visiting this region for decades, and every time they come, they find the same thing. People like Panchita, old, active, lucid, eating beans. In the United States, the average person over 65 takes 5 prescription medications daily. In Nicoya, researchers documented centenarians with cardiovascular profiles and inflammatory markers that specialists associate with people 30 years younger. People who had never taken a statin, never been prescribed a blood pressure medication, never counted a calorie in their lives. Scientists wanted to know why. And what they found was not a supplement, not a fitness protocol, not a genetic anomaly. It was 3 foods. The same 3 foods, eaten every day, for 100 years. I'm going to show you exactly what those foods are and what they do at a cellular level. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you something about the water in Nicoya that scientists found so surprising it changed how researchers think about extreme longevity. Stay until the end, because the water piece is the one almost nobody talks about. But first, the thing most people get wrong about Nicoya. When researchers first started studying this region, they assumed the secret must be genetic. Costa Ricans are a specific population with specific ancestral roots. Maybe their DNA was simply different. That assumption collapsed when scientists followed the children of Nicoyan families who had emigrated to cities like San Jose. Within 1 generation, the longevity advantage disappeared. The grandchildren of centenarians, eating a modern urban diet with processed foods and refined carbohydrates, showed the same cardiovascular risk markers as everyone else. The same hypertension, the same insulin resistance, the same inflammatory profiles. It was not the genes, it was the food. Tier 1, the Nixtamalized corn tortilla. Every household in Nicoya eats corn tortillas. This is not remarkable on its own. Corn tortillas are common throughout Central America and Mexico. What is remarkable is how the corn is prepared. Traditional Nicoyan families process their corn through a 3,000-year-old technique inherited from Mesoamerican civilizations called nixtamalization. The dried corn kernels are soaked and slowly cooked in an alkaline solution, traditionally water mixed with calcium hydroxide, also known as lime, before being ground into the dough called masa. This process does something that raw corn cannot do on its own. It breaks down a compound called niacin, which normally traps niacin, vitamin B3, inside the kernel in a form the human body cannot absorb. After nixtamalization, the bound niacin is released and becomes fully bioavailable. The increase reaches up to 900% compared to unprocessed corn. This is why civilizations that adopted corn without nixtamalization developed pellagra, a niacin deficiency disease, causing cognitive deterioration and skin damage. the Mesoamerican civilizations that kept nixtamalization never did. They had solved the problem 3,000 years before biochemistry had a name for it. The process also increases the calcium content of each tortilla. The alkaline solution leaches calcium directly into the masa. In Nicoya, these tortillas are eaten at every meal, including breakfast, delivering bioavailable niacin, calcium, and slow-digesting complex carbohydrates 3 times daily, from a food that costs almost nothing to make. Tier 2. Black beans. The Adventist Health Study, which followed 69,000 people for 7 years, found that legume consumption 4 or more times per week was the single dietary factor most consistently associated with reduced all-cause mortality across the entire cohort. Not olive oil, not whole grains, not fish. Legumes. In Nicoya, black beans are not eaten 4 times a week. They are eaten at almost every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, every day. The mechanism goes significantly beyond fiber. When the resistant starch from black beans reaches the colon undigested, the gut bacteria that feed on it ferment it and produce short-chain fatty acids, primarily butyrate. Butyrate is the primary fuel source for colonocytes, the specialized cells that line the colon wall. Adequate butyrate production maintains the structural integrity of the gut barrier, suppresses abnormal cell proliferation, and directly reduces systemic inflammatory signaling throughout the body. When the gut barrier is compromised, a condition increasingly documented in Western populations eating low-fiber diets, bacterial endotoxins cross into circulation, triggering low-grade chronic inflammation that silently accelerates cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, and cognitive decline over decades. No acute symptoms. Everything just gets worse, slowly, over a very long time. Nicoyan centenarians eating black beans daily for 80 years were maintaining gut barrier integrity and suppressing this inflammatory mechanism continuously, not as a deliberate health strategy, but as an ordinary eating habit passed down without interruption through generations. The black bean also delivers iron, folate, magnesium, and potassium in a nutrient matrix the body absorbs efficiently when consumed alongside the vitamin C from the vegetables in a traditional Nicoyan meal. The corn tortilla delivers calcium. The beans deliver magnesium. The combination covers 2 of the most commonly deficient minerals in the Western diet, together in the same meal for pennies. Before we reach Tier 3, if you are finding this useful, subscribe to Longevity Code. Every week, we decode 1 blue zone, 1 centenarian population, 1 system. Always peer-reviewed research, always something specific you can apply this week. Tier 3. Calabaza squash. Calabaza is a dense, deeply orange-fleshed tropical squash, common throughout Central America and eaten in nearly every traditional Nicoyan meal. It is cheap. It is abundant year-round. It requires almost no preparation. And it delivers one of the most consistently documented longevity-relevant nutrient profiles in the entire research literature on plant foods. A single serving of calabaza provides beta-carotene at levels that convert to vitamin A in the body, essential for immune function, skin integrity, and visual health. It provides vitamin C, which enables the collagen synthesis that maintains arterial wall elasticity and supports iron absorption from the black beans eaten in the same meal. It provides potassium, which maintains vascular flexibility and directly counteracts the arterial stiffening that drives hypertension with age. And it provides cucurbitacins, bioactive compounds specific to the squash family that a 2022 review in the journal Nutrients identified as having direct anti-inflammatory and anti-proliferative properties at the cellular level, independent of the vitamin and mineral content. The Three Sisters combination, corn, beans, squash, is not accidentally nutritious. These three crops were historically planted together in Mesoamerican agriculture. The corn provides vertical structure, the beans fix nitrogen into the ground, the squash shades the surface and retains moisture. The agricultural system and the nutritional system were the same system. Communities that ate what they grew received a complete protein. The amino acid profiles of corn and beans complement each other to cover all essential amino acids, alongside anti-inflammatory phytochemicals, gut protective resistant starch, and a full spectrum of micronutrients. 3 times a day, without any awareness of the biochemistry involved. What does this look like in practice? In the first 7 days, replacing refined breakfast carbohydrates with corn tortillas and black beans costs under $1 per meal and delivers more bioavailable protein, fiber, niacin, and minerals than most Western breakfast options at 5 times the price. The satiety from legume-based resistant starch is significantly more sustained. Appetite signals in the mid-morning become quieter rather than louder. Within 30 days, consistent legume intake begins reshaping gut microbiome composition toward butyrate-producing bacterial populations. The 2021 Cell study on dietary shifts found measurable changes in microbiome diversity and inflammatory protein levels within 10 weeks of increased fiber consumption. Within 90 days, the combination of reduced glycemic variability from nixtamalized corn, increased butyrate production from daily black beans, and consistent antioxidant loading from Calabaza creates a measurably different inflammatory baseline. Lower C-reactive protein, improved fasting insulin, better mineral status. The Nicoyan Centenarians did not arrive at their extraordinary cardiovascular profiles through a 90-day protocol. They arrived there because this was simply Tuesday and Wednesday, and every day for 100 years. Now, the water. When researchers from the University of Costa Rica and the Pan American Health Organization began systematically analyzing every environmental factor behind the Nicoya longevity anomaly, they tested everything: diet, physical activity, social connection, stress levels, healthcare access, and the water. What they found stopped them. The drinking water on the Nicoya Peninsula has some of the highest calcium and magnesium concentrations ever recorded in a natural drinking water source anywhere on Earth. The calcium content measures approximately 200 milligrams per liter. The magnesium content falls between 40 and 60 milligrams per liter. Standard municipal tap water in the United States delivers between 10 and 50 milligrams of calcium per liter, at most a quarter of the Nicoyan concentration. The significance is this: minerals absorbed from water are more bioavailable than the same minerals from food or supplements. The mineral matrix in solution crosses the gut wall more efficiently than minerals bound within food compounds. Every glass of water these centenarians drank delivered calcium and magnesium, the two minerals most critical for cardiovascular function, bone density, neuromuscular signaling, and sleep quality. Passively, without intention. simply by drinking from the local water source every day for 100 years. Panchita did not move to Nicoya for the water. She was born there. She has drunk that water every day for 102 years. She has eaten corn tortillas, black beans, and calabaza squash at nearly every meal for a century. She tends her garden in the morning because the garden needs tending, not because movement is good for her telomeres. The research does not tell us that Panchita's life is perfectly replicable elsewhere. It tells us something more useful. Which specific variables produce the outcome? The food, the minerals, the daily purpose, the movement that comes from living rather than exercising. And it tells us those variables were not expensive or sophisticated. They were the cheapest foods in the local market and the water from the tap. Which of these three foods, corn tortillas, black beans, or calabaza squash, is easiest for you to add to your meals this week? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe to Longevity Code. Next week, another blue zone, another centenarian, another system. Always the science, always something you can start this week.